From KPFK in Los Angeles, California, Valley Free Radio in Florence, Massachusetts, WNUC in Detroit, and BikeTalk.org worldwide, this is Bike Talk.
Bike Talk.
Welcome to Bike Talk. I'm Taylor Nichols.
And I'm Nick Richard.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Taylor.
How is the air in Western Massachusetts?
It's fine now, but it was yellow. It was like a used cigarette filter for a while.
Yeah. You know, I finished my ride from my daughters to my dad in Michigan late last week, and I beat the bad air by one day. I got to my dad, and the very next day, they were warning people, don't go outside. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me, you know, what would have happened had I still been on the road and needed to ride 50 or so miles through that kind of air. And, you know, it makes me think, what are we doing to our planet where this is becoming a regular thing, where the East Coast is inundated by smoke from fires in Canada, or the Midwest from fires in Utah, or the Northwest or something? You know what I mean?
I saw people who looked like they were on a bike tour, at least one guy, and he had the panniers and everything, and he was in this air. You know, if you're in a car, you get the cabin air filter. I guess that gives you some, that
protection.
Filters it.
Was he wearing a mask?
No, he wasn't. I think it's ironic that we're causing 10 to 15% of greenhouse gas emissions globally by driving, but it's people who aren't driving that get the worst of it.
Yeah, that are paying the price for it, right? Absolutely. I was lucky to have missed it. I'm back in Los Angeles now, and it's good to be home, but I do feel a little bit like what we talked about last week with Jake Hess. There's more road. You know, why aren't I riding on it? So I do miss being on the road, but I'm glad to be home. It was a wonderful trip. And again, I want to thank everybody who supported me and us in the show while I was out on the road. It really meant a lot to me, and I'm going to miss it.
You ride every day, right?
I do ride every day.
A lot, like far.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to ride tomorrow with one of the guys that I met on the show. I talked about him early on when I was on the tour. He's on a 4,200 day riding everyday bike streak, and he's in Los Angeles, and I'm going to ride with him tomorrow and be a part of his streak again. While we're on this topic of climate and cars causing a lot of this damage to our environment, Portland, Oregon broke the record for the biggest e-bike ride in the world. When I was riding my bike across the country, the big thing that people were talking about was, are we cheating if we're on an e-bike, or are we cheating if we're getting a ride from a car or a bus? And we all decided, we all meaning the people that I met along my trip, we all decided that there is no cheating in biking, because biking is such a beautiful form of transportation that biking in general is cheating because it's so great. Well, along these lines, Bike Loud PDX, which is a bike organization in Portland, Oregon, they just broke the world record for the largest e-bike ride in history. And we have Bike Loud PDX operational manager with us today, Claire Vlech. Claire, thank you so much for joining us, and tell us about this world record e-bike ride, because the old record was held by an organization in Seattle with 400, and you guys devastated that.
I want to be clear that Bike Loud didn't organize this ride. We participated heavily, and we had volunteers helping out on the route. We had a lot of our members who rode, but it was organized by the Portland Bureau of Transportation with Biketown, which is our bike share system. And a lot of our bike share is e-bikes. So they decided that it was a 10-year anniversary of the bike share system, and they figured a 10-year-old would love to break a world record for their birthday party. So that's what we did.
That's great. Well, I love the fact that it's part of the bike share system and part of the Portland structure of transportation, because I think that that's so important, that it's not just advocates, that it's actually city government that is promoting this. And I think that e-bikes for bike share is also a game changer. How many e-bikes did you have?
So the official count was 1,060 e-bike riders. The ride was so long that by the time the last riders left the finish line, the first riders had gotten back all the way around.
How long was the ride? How many miles?
It was around 2 miles. We looped across the Willamette River down to our transit, bike, and pedestrian only bridge, rode over that, and then back over to the start line.
And were you on public streets or were you on bike paths or trails or was it a mixture? Did you have police support? Did you cork intersections? How did the ride work?
It was a mix. We were on some dedicated bike lanes, on some paths, on this bridge that isn't open to cars. And then we were also on streets for a while. And they did have volunteers corking a couple intersections. There was no police support.
Oh, wow.
It was a well-organized ride.
Well, usually when things are done through the Department of Transportation, there is police support. So I'm kind of actually glad that you didn't feel that you needed it.
Portland has a culture of bike rides that are corked by volunteers. A lot of people are used to riding in that way, I would say. I think there were a lot of riders on this ride who were maybe newer to the Portland bike culture. And so it was really great to participate in this and be a part of this big ride and feel the joy and feel like they were in a community with 1,000+ other riders.
And feel the wind in their hair, I might add, because that's one of the great things about a bike ride.
The wind in their hair or the wind in their wig or onesie or costume, because that they encourage people to make it a little whimsical. So my family all attach unicorn horns to our helmets. So we were a unicorn family, but there were riders wearing all sorts of costumes.
I love that also. Was everybody on an e-bike or was it a mixture of e-bikes and acoustic bikes? What?
It was a mix. So they were counting e-bikes, but if people wanted to come and participate and be a part of the fun, then they could do that on an acoustic bike. We also had a lot of Bike Loud volunteers who don't own e-bikes who helped out with the course or counting people or, scanning people's QR codes because the Guinness Book of World Records folks wanted to make sure we had a good, proper count.
Oh, so this is an actual world record then?
Oh, yes. We're going to be in the book and all.
Oh, that's great.
We had a lot of people show up from Bike Loud. My whole family was there. We all have Bike Loud pennants on our bikes, and we had a bunch of our members showed up wearing their t-shirts. So we had a good presence at the ride.
Great. Well, we've had people from Bike Loud PDX on the show in the past, but this is your first time on the show. And you're now on the paid staff of Bike Loud PDX. And I think that is so great. We need more paid staff people working in these kind of advocacy roles. AAA has had a paid staff promoting car usage for 100 years. And we need people that are actually working and earning money doing this kind of work. So I'm so glad to hear about your hire with Bike Loud PDX. Can you tell me what you're doing as the operational manager?
The role is still being defined. And, I agree with what you said about needing to have paid positions for this sort of thing, because if it's your full-time job, then although this job is half-time, but still, if it's your paid job, then you have much more capacity to do the work that needs to be done than if you're doing it just as a volunteer capacity. And it also takes pressure off of our volunteers so that, they're not feeling burnt out. We've had that happen in the past where people feel burnt out and then they drop out of the movement for a while. So hopefully that'll help keep volunteers engaged and motivated and activated without them feeling overwhelmed. Some of what I've been doing is hosting Portland's weekly bike social hour that used to be hosted by Jonathan Maas of Bike Portland. I'm also helping refine some of our communications, so around social media, but also when we table at events like this World Record Bike Ride, making sure that we have all the information out there about what we're doing, the sort of advocacy that we do, how people can get involved, because there is so much great energy out there on Sunday and people were really excited. And so having materials that were really clear about how people can stay in touch with us, get engaged, join our really active Slack channel, meet other bike-minded folks at Bike Social Hour, really trying to bring more people into the fold.
Biking is a big tent, and we want to welcome mountain bikers, road bikers, commuters, e-bikers, e-scooters, all kinds of, multimodal transportation into our tent. Portland has been, the number one U.S. biking city for a long time, but I got to tell you, I was just in Minneapolis, and Minneapolis is giving you a run for your money.
I know we're slipping a little bit, and we keep pushing our local Bureau of Transportation, saying we're doing great. We want to do even better, especially now, like you said, with this big tent that includes e-bikes, because we can reach so many more people now, right? Like parents carrying children, people who want to use bikes as car replacements.
Right.
It allows them to carry more things faster, quicker,
further, right?
Not as tired. And
I would add not as sweaty.
Yeah, that too, especially in the summer. And also thinking about people with disabilities, like some people can't drive but can ride a bike. Some people can't really walk very far, but they can ride a bike. On Sunday after the ride, I passed a bike on our waterfront, and it was an older couple. They looked like they were both at least 70. And
wow, that's old.
Well,
I'm teasing.
The guy in front was riding the bike, and then the woman in the back was riding as a passenger, right?
Oh.
And a lot of the time you see kids in the back, but it's so great seeing other kinds of families using e-bikes that way.
Right. Well, listen, I got to tell you, I love this idea of the biggest e-bike ride world record, 1,060 bikers biking on a designated route and breaking the world record. So Seattle, it's up to you, or Minneapolis, it's up to you, or New York, it's up to you to best that.
So you're saying we can't rest on our laurels here?
I don't think you can rest on your laurels, not in this day and age. Before we end, how do people find out about Bike Loud PDX, and how do people find out about your amazing world record?
People can find us online at bikeloudpdx.org. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at Bike Loud PDX. Really, people should just Google World Record E-Bike Ride Portland, because there are so many great photos and videos out there, and people should have a chance to see those.
Claire Villette, thanks so much for your new role at Bike Loud PDX, and thanks for coming on Bike Talk.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Last week we played the first part of your interview with Peter Norton and about AVs and whether that can be part of the solution to aging people out of driving or climate change or something like that. So let's play the second part of that interview, because I really liked to hear what Peter had to say.
I started out talking to him about younger drivers.
There's also a very large group of people who haven't reached the age of 25 yet, when their brain is still developing.
You bet.
Who are driving. I mean, when I was that age, I was crashing into stationary objects.
I am the first person to agree that what we've got now, the status quo we've got now, is intolerable. And this is actually the best business strategy for Waymo to take, is to say the status quo is intolerable. The trouble is, you're not going to salvage this status quo by making every mile cost 100 times more than it costs now. And I have to pull 100 out of the air, and that's not my fault. Waymo won't publicize its costs, but we know the costs are in that kind of neighborhood. We can see how much X, the subsidiary of Google that runs the robotic car enterprise, we can see how much money they lose. The trouble is, we can't see which buckets the money's going into. But we do know that Waymo is losing billions for Google every year. And unless we decide that, the government is going to pick up those costs when Waymo finally gives up, we would be following a long dead end to pursue that as the way to deal with immature drivers, people who've aged out, people who can't drive for 100 other reasons. We also know, incidentally, that even if we could roboticize half the fleet of cars. First of all, mixing with human-driven cars is still going to be dangerous. And second, and this is why all other high-income countries besides us have been on the right trajectory with steady declines in deaths and injuries, they know what we should know here, which is that the most effective way to make travel safer in the USA is to reduce the amount of driving that people have to do to meet their daily needs. Like, for example, if you have a middle to low income job and you want an affordable place to live, you make that work by being willing to drive 40, 50 miles each way. That's an insane way to do it. And of course, those miles are heavily subsidized. What if that subsidy went into offering affordable housing? And people will say, well, yeah, it's not going to happen. And I agree. There's no sign that we're going to start getting that right. But we're certainly not going to get that right if we follow the delusional path that says make every mile of driving completely roboticized. That's insane. It's kind of like saying, why don't we have tourism to the moon? Well, the short answer is, yeah, we could do it, but we can't afford to. It's that simple.
You did say unless we subsidize it.
This, to me, is a very scary model. So, yes, it would be possible. It's theoretically possible to say, okay, presuming that eventually Waymo can't keep losing billions every year, it could continue with public subsidies, and those public subsidies could be justified if the services provided dealt with people like the ones you mentioned as examples, people including in rural America who can't safely drive but have to go to the doctor. The list goes on. The thing is, the costs entailed in that to the public would be a gross misallocation because there is, of course, opportunity cost. Opportunity cost says, if I choose to spend my money on A, I can't spend it on B. Well, in this case, if A is robotic cars, B is a long list of things that work better. So it would be, and this is not, this is a mistake we've kept making. We have express highways, freeways, the vocabulary changes between Massachusetts and LA, turnpikes and so on, going through the middle of cities. That's a specifically US thing. And if you look at how they justified that when they did that, when they demolished all those neighborhoods and put those things in, they said, sure, it's expensive, it's devastating, costs a lot of public money, it's the maintenance is a nightmare, but we're doing it to save lives. On a net basis, it didn't save a single life because every life that was saved, because the highways don't have at-grade intersections, one passes over the other, you have the nice curves and so on, and the median strip. Those saved lives. But for every life that those things saved, there were multiple lives that were lost because the amount of driving went way up. And to get to those highways, you had to drive a normal car or a normal road to and from that highway too. And then when you were on the highway, you could go faster. And so by massively increasing the amount of driving, the expressways negated the safety benefit that justified public money and then some. It would be the same story with robotic cars. If the USA said, obviously they're not going to say that, but if for the sake of argument, they said, we're going to make sure that every American can get to a robotic car or get access to a robotic car, and we'll have a series of subsidies, maybe graded by need, it would be a crippling expense to the country. And it would suck all the money out of the things that we know really work, like walkability, like transit, like bike lanes. The money would have to come from somewhere, and it would be a disaster. Very targeted stuff might make a lot of sense. Like if you just had very targeted subsidies so that 90-year-olds can get out, I'm all for that. I don't want to be mistaken here for being against everything, but you're not going to solve the safety problem this way.
And robotic cars would increase the overall amount of driving.
Yeah, of course, that depends a lot on what people would pay. So, people weren't riding around cruises in San Francisco or Waymos in LA for joy rides very much. I mean, probably some of that. But yeah, if the costs were subsidized such that it was like taking the bus, yeah, you can imagine people might, to solve their affordable housing problem, they might start going 100 miles each way because they can do some work each way or take a rest. So that's a factor too. Absolutely. I want to note parenthetically that I've been calling these things robotic cars because I think calling them autonomous cars is actually part of the problem. That word autonomous fosters the illusion. So the illusion is partly sustained by subsidizing each ride. So a ride I pay $20 for, maybe that cost Alphabet $1,000. I don't know, a lot more. But another part of the illusion is to call these things autonomous. They are the opposite of autonomous. Something that's autonomous, it does what it feels like doing. And a robotic car, when it's working well, does only what its human programmers intend it to do. And I think this matters. It matters because, and sometimes the promoters and the tech people give it this spin. They want people to think that these cars are sort of hyper-rational, incapable of error, and incapable of bias. The car has to be biased in favor of its occupants, or it's not going to attract riders. And we know it's biased in favor of its occupants. You just have to watch how they perform. It's a very tough balancing act because Waymo has to make these cars assertive enough that passengers will be like, yeah, it's worth paying money to ride in this. At the same time, they have to be careful not to ever cause a death because then they're doomed as a company. And all of these companies have been trying to find that line. And I want to give Waymo some credit because they have been the most cautious. And I think that's simply the consequence of the fact that Alphabet has been willing to lose far more money on Waymo than any other company has been willing to lose on its robotic cars.
Hopefully we can get you back if we have any follow-up questions.
Sure, yeah.
And is there a syllabus for this?
I have a book on the subject called Autonorama.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. It needs an update. And in fact, I have just finished a new chapter for it about the Cruise and Waymo story. And I'm in conversations now about a second edition of Autonorama with that new chapter that would bring it from 2021 when the book was published right up to the present. At this point, I don't have a deal. The ink isn't dry, and so I can't say more than that. But certainly Autonorama, though, remains relevant. There's a common mistake that says if we're talking about technology, then anything more than a few years old is irrelevant. And I think that mistake makes us make the same errors over and over again because, in fact, there's a lot of constants. Geometry is a constant. Physics is a constant. Human nature is largely a constant. So the fact that one term in the equation is changing, the technology, does not mean we should ignore all the other terms in the equation like geometry, physics, and human nature. Like, for example, when I said that express highways were sold to us on the claim that they would make crashes impossible, and that was false, that is categorically the same lie that we're being sold now. It's almost one-to-one. So you take the express highway, and the promoter said, you can't crash at an intersection on this because we don't have any intersections. And that's true. But then they don't add in the fact that, but you're also going 3 times faster. So if you do crash, you're going to die this time. Well, the same kind of funny math is being used with robotic cars. They say, well, a robotic car can't get angry, tired, distracted, drunk, etc. All true. But on the other hand, human beings don't make any of the stupid mistakes that robotic cars make all the time. Like, for example, thinking that a puddle is a solid object, or not seeing a school bus, not seeing the white of a panel truck side. So robotic cars make stupid mistakes that humans don't make, and humans make stupid mistakes that robots don't make, which means that the sum of the equation is not dramatically for either side, but they only show you the parts of the equation that make the robots look good, which is the never distracted, never drunk part.
I thought you were going to make a different point, the one-to-one with highways where, they don't have the intersections, but they're driving 3 times faster. With robotic cars, they don't get tired, distracted, angry, or inebriated, but they can constantly drive.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And if they constantly drive, a lot of that time they're going to be empty. We've stopped talking about climate change for some reason, which is it disturbs me. But the truth is, the computational power that these cars require is behind much of the data center bonanza. And when the data center people are trying to attract investors, one of the first things they'll say to the investors is, yeah, look at Waymo. They're going to keep growing like this. Don't worry, folks. You're going to have constant demand for this stuff. And as you pointed out, it's bizarre because the AI people are losing money and the Waymo people are losing money, but they keep that going around like hot checks can keep you going around. Your point about the one-to-one is correct too.
Thank you, Peter, for coming on again. It's great to have you.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for the work you do. I'm a bike rider, so I really appreciate you being on the scene.
It's always wonderful to hear what he has to say. And again, he's been on the show a couple of times. So if you want to hear other interviews with Peter Norton, go to biketalk.org and just type in Peter Norton, and those interviews come up. And he's a real positive voice in the movement.
Yeah. And now, Stacy's news.
I'm Stacy with this week's news. On July 9, Louisa Gag, an ardent traffic safety advocate turned Boston City Hall employee, was killed by a driver while biking in the Mission Hill neighborhood. This intersection had been identified as dangerous, and there were plans to improve safety there. But those plans were shelved after a well-funded suburban candidate emerged to challenge Mayor Wu's 2025 bid for re-election. Louisa joined City Hall shortly after Mayor Wu's first election. She had been responsible for helping to expand Boston's bike share network. It is a cruel irony that her advocacy work preceding her hire included serving as the lead author of Not on a Shelf, a 58-page report card on how well Boston was implementing its 2017 long-range transportation plan. From cycling news, Belgian racer Xandro Maurice suffered a major scare following the Tour de France Stage 16 individual time trial when he was struck from behind by a spectator/driver as he was heading away from the finish. Maurice suffered a number of cuts and bruises as well as some road rash. His bike, however, was completely destroyed as a result of the crash, as well as some of his race clothing being shredded. It was expected, subject to final confirmation, that he would be able to start Stage 17 as normal. New protected bike lane barriers in Atlanta's Grant Park have caused multiple cars to flip or get beached on top of them, prompting the city to add reflectors and bollards, while insisting the crashes are due to driver error. Yes, they are. And now for the RAGBRAI 53 forecast. Riders are enjoying more temperate seasonal weather with highs in the upper 70s and cooling to between 50 and 60 degrees overnight. This is a welcome change from the start of RAGBRAI, the Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa, where daytime highs approached 100 degrees. RAGBRAI is the oldest, largest, and longest recreational bicycle touring event in the world.
Last week, we talked to Jim Cadenhead, our mechanic, the owner of Battle Road Bikes in Boston. He told us about Louisa Gag. So ironic, like Stacy said, she actually wrote a report called Shelved about how they shelved their safety plans in Boston.
Right.
Her death is making people wake up. And Jim C. went to her vigil and talked to some people, including Mary McCarthy.
My name is Mary McCarthy. I'm the Greater Boston New England Mountain Bike Association chapter president. And what does her loss mean to me or to the community? It's just a rude and painful wake-up call that we're so vulnerable. And I feel today that we were told everyone has a role to play in changing this dynamic. I watched her 2019 presentation on Boston 2030, and I really felt like something has to change.
It breaks your heart when you realize that someone has put it out there ahead of time that these projects are being shelved and not implemented to save lives on our streets. And it makes me all the more aware that we need political leaders to get out front of this issue and make it a real campaign issue that we are fighting to protect our citizens on the street, whether you're walking, biking, driving, scooting, in a wheelchair, whatever. And just this last week in Los Angeles, we had another CicLAvia event, which of course is the open street event. And it struck me because this time there were a lot of political leaders there giving speeches about safe streets. The former mayor and current council member Chelsea Byers of West Hollywood, Representative Laura Friedman, who has been on the show before, Nithya Raman, who's a LA City Council member and who is running for mayor. But you know who wasn't there, Nick, is Karen Bass, the current mayor of Los Angeles. And it kind of irks me. It's like she should be in front of these issues. And so maybe this will be a real campaign issue for someone like Nithya Raman.
She's making it a campaign issue. She's on a bike in her Instagram videos. Meet the Hollywoods, that was.
Meet the Hollywoods, West Hollywood, Hollywood, East Hollywood.
That's where you live. That's right there.
And, you know, it's right down all these really iconic streets, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, Santa Monica Boulevard. It's really nice when those streets open up. We really get to see how beautiful our neighborhood can be when it's not choked full of cars all the time.
At the speed of observation.
At the speed of observation. Thank you very much.
I'm paying attention.
That's the title of my book.
Nice. Do people read anymore?
I guess we'll find out if I write it.
I was inspired by your ride. A listener, Tom O'Brien, invited me to ride a segment of the Western New England Greenway from Falls Village, Connecticut to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is right near me. And it goes through all these Berkshire landmarks and beautiful places. And I talked to Tom and two of the guys who were instrumental in getting this route designated, the Western New England Greenway.
Let's hear that.
I'm Dan McGuinness.
Yeah, and Dan Bolognani.
And Tom, we know.
Tom O'Brien.
You all have been working on the Western New England Greenway for how long?
Approximately 15, 16 years.
Yeah, and it's been a long ride trying to get all the municipalities, all the cycling organizations, and the state DOTs to support the project.
Now the state DOTs have supported the project?
Technically, they're the ones who submitted the applications to AASHTO and the Venture Cycling to get an official designation as official Bike Route 7, U.S. Bike Route 7. It's a bike route from Norwalk, Connecticut to the Canadian border, where it hooks up with the Rohrer. In Norwalk, it hooks up with the East Coast Greenway.
It's a greenway?
It's a greenway. We call it the Greenway, yeah.
What's the definition of a greenway? Is there a definition?
Whatever you want it to be.
and we have
Like
modeled our naming and branding
on the East Coast
Greenway.
Which, you know, it would be nice to have it all off-road, but doesn't happen yet. They'll encourage people to do it.
So is this one of these things like giving a president a Nobel Peace Prize because you're hoping that they will then fall in line with it?
No, this is more like, you know, giving you a route. I mean, you technically you could just ride up Route 7, but we take people off the main roads as much as possible. It's a much nicer ride than just zipping along 7.
We wanted to make sure there was cultural heritage along the way. Yeah. So the route runs past, state parks, cultural heritage sites, historical markers, historical sites, etc. And so it really is a nice ride for leisure time to go and visit the area, and it's beautiful scenery too.
You go by the Norman Rockwell Museum, the Berkshire Botanical Gardens. So if you want to zip off, hey, that's great.
Arrowhead.
Herman Melville's Arrowhead.
Sure.
So for someone who's used to riding on the road, it really is kind of ideal.
Yeah, unless you really like riding on 4-lane highways, this is a much better way of doing it.
Your Western New England Greenway goes about 381 miles, I think I heard, and then the East Coast Greenway goes the whole East Coast.
That's Maine to Key West, the East Coast Greenway.
And in Canada, you hook up with the Rohrer, a couple thousand miles of routes. A lot of it's off-road too.
That's amazing.
I don't know if you've ever ridden in Canada, but it's great.
I rode a little bit of Montreal, which I will do again. Because the more I keep hearing about these routes, it's inspiring. You're getting people on the road.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's a real low-impact tourism type thing. Right. And it's good for the people who live here too.
Right. We just want to get people out on bikes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing today with this 40-mile each way 2-day ride.
Or 50 miles or whatever it is.
U.S. Bike Route 7 is an alternative to federal auto Route 7, which is extremely un-bike friendly. Yeah. And we see a lot of people traveling on bikes that just automatically go on Route 7. So this is an effort to educate people on a much safer and more scenic alternative.
16, 20 years well spent.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing nice about that, Nick, is there's no cars in the background of that interview.
Yeah. I mean, there were some cars, but low traffic, slow speed. I never felt unsafe.
Right.
Part of it was riding with a group, or with Tom too, with someone else helps. We stopped in Great Barrington, Tom and I, at a bagel shop, and I talked to Robin and Amy. They owned a bike shop for over 40 years in Manchester, Vermont, and they bought a rail trail and added it to the network where they live.
They bought it or they are paying for the upkeep of the trail?
No, they bought it.
Oh, I love that. I want one.
Yeah. Look for bargains.
How long you been biking together?
We owned a bike shop for 43 years in Manchester, Vermont.
Oh, okay.
And
We're married. We're married for 56 years, so we've been riding most of it, starting around 2005 when I retired from one of my jobs. Then we really got serious about touring.
Oh, I thought you were going to say serious about the marriage.
Well, that goes along with it. You got to get along together. Yeah. Riding is our life. That's what it's all about.
And how do you like this ride?
Oh, we love it. Actually, we're part of the Western New England Greenway. We built a trail. That's how we got to know this group, because they were coming through Manchester and got in touch with us. And we had a bike shop, and they needed someone that needed a part. And we also have a group called Bike Manchester Vermont, and invited the whole group for dinner one night. And Robin and I were hooked. And we bought this railroad with 2 other people because the town couldn't do it because it was going to possibly go through the court system, which we did. And we put it together. We bought the property in 2009, and it was an old railroad bed that carried marble from Dorset to Manchester.
Now it's like public, or?
It's actually part of the Western New England Greenway.
It's an alternative. If you want to ride a trail instead of on the road, you can ride 3.5 miles out of it. The piece that we bought was 1.2 miles, but we were able to get an easement to hook it up to what the town had already built. So that made it like 2.5 miles, and then we extended it on some dirt roads. So now
which we just finished doing this past November. So now it goes school to school, Manchester Elementary School to the Dorset Elementary School.
The original railroad company was called the Manchester, Dorset, and Granville Railroad, MD&G. It was never completed to Granville. It only ran to carry marble.
Yeah.
The marble business slowed down, and they shut down the quarry.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, it's so well used already. As soon as we can get some signs in our state that say the Western New England Greenway.
You're looking at Tom.
Well, Tom is the one that goes out there and actually plants the signs. He's a great asset. That's the only reason there's signage out, really.
It was a joint effort. You know, I sort of did the groundwork of meeting with all the town officials and stuff, but, you know, Dan B. arranged all the financing. I mean, that's a really good group of people.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think a little bit of the Lansing bike party. You know, before I left my dad's house and came back home, I had an opportunity to meet with the Lansing Bike Party. And by the way, I just love that name, the Lansing Bike Party, as an organization. So these are some guys who came out and met me for a coffee, and we couldn't ride, Nick, because the air was so bad. Otherwise, we would have gone for a ride. Instead, we just met for a coffee.
I'm in Lansing. I had to meet up with the Lansing Bike Party, which I really love that name. Tim Potter, who's been on the show before, who was the director of the MSU bike program, and his brother Jeff is here. And Rick, who I met on the road the other day, is here. And Andy, who's the director of the League of Michigan Bicyclists, is here. So tell us about your program, the League, and also what you're working on and what we've been talking about while we've been having coffee.
Hi, Andy Rohrer, Executive Director, League of Michigan Bicyclists. I'm going to try and do this in 30 seconds to 60 seconds. So essentially, we serve to unify the cycling community all across Michigan in order to advocate for safety and access for cycling, and of course to educate the cycling community towards their rights and responsibilities, but also the broader community towards the rights and responsibilities of cyclists. promoting safety and access for them. We're a 501c3, so most of our job is not to lobby or to, advocate with the legislators, but it's important to do that. But we also work with state agencies, and of course, we're always promoting cycling around the state of Michigan. In fact, I would say it's been many, many years, and now I finally get paid to ride a bicycle. But I want everybody to ride a bicycle with me. So that's kind of the 60 seconds.
No, that's great, because I love being paid. I think that's a really important part of the advocacy. It can't always be volunteers, and you have a great shirt.
We do. And I want to tell anybody that's interested, we do have a website, lmb.org. Anybody in Michigan is welcome to join us. Of course, anybody anywhere in the country is welcome to join us. And of course, we are a 501c3, so we do operate off the generosity of others.
Great. So send money to lmb.org. And Rick, you're like an old-time advocate, and you were my escort into town the other day. Yeah. Tell us where Lansing is now.
Lansing, it's right in the middle of the mitten, as we say, right. And I've been here since the early 70s and started out just as a bike racer. And back in those days, everybody was 19, 20, 21, and anybody over 25 was a fossil. and now I'm in my 70s, and I'm kind of the mainstream, strangely as it is. And people in their 20s, where are they? Where are they hiding out? So,
well, where are they? What do you think's going on?
Some of them are mountain bikers. Some, I think, most of them are gamers, or in front of TVs or screens or whatever. It's a mystery. Yeah. I just shake my head, scratch my head all the time. So where are all these people?
Well, you were just talking earlier about how at Michigan State you used to go to a dorm and there would be 1,000 bicycles, right? And now at the dorm there's maybe 100 bicycles,
which is ironic because the infrastructure on the campus is much better now than it was back in the old days.
And that's because of Tim Potter.
Yeah. Well, it's been a couple decades of a lot of improvements. You're right, but the numbers of pedal bikes has definitely dropped, sadly.
And so, are there more e-bikes? Because that's a positive.
Well, a lot more electric assist devices. So they're either bikes or the one wheels or the scooters or it seemed like every month something new with an electric motor would go whizzing by, and it was just, what was that?
When I ride around the campus I guess it's the south part of campus, there are huge parking lots, and those are all full. Are those student cars? Is that the deal?
Yeah, they're considered student commuter lots, they call them. Right. And I gave up my on-campus parking privileges that I could have got, and I ride my bike back and forth, or used to. Don't anymore. But it was funny. The parking staff actually tried 3 times to convince me, why would I park down there? I did pay for a couple of years of parking in one of those huge lots. They said, that's just for students. And I said, I think anybody can park there, right? But they really, really discourage people from parking or really doing anything other than driving to campus, which is really pretty sad.
Yeah, it's too bad because Lansing's fairly flat. The weather's good for 8-9 months out of the year, and I guess those other months, you can still ride.
Oh yeah.
Jeff, where do you fit into all this?
Oh my.
In the Lansing Bike Party.
In the Lansing Bike Party. Well, I've been enjoying it for a long time, and it's not about the bike. I love the socializing of the bike scene, and I'm involved with basically all the bike scenes in town, which is kind of fun.
Can you name some of the other ones just so I know
There's the Epic Mountain Bike Group, social mountain bikers, and of course there's our Lansing Bike Party. Then there's the CCCC Bike Racers, Capital City Cycling Club Bike Racers. Wow, okay. There's the TCBA Bike Touring Organizers, and
Mid-Michigan Mountain Bike Association. LMB is based here in Lansing.
MMBA.
MMBA,
Yes.
Which is
the official mountain bike association. Okay. Epic Mountain Biking is like the bike party of mountain biking.
Great. Well, let me ask, because when I was in Minneapolis, we talked a little bit about, do too many advocacy groups spoil the kitchen? And I wonder, are all of the groups in Lansing connected in any way? Is there any way to mobilize all of the different groups to help get more political will behind making more bike infrastructure?
That would be nice. LMB would be the people to do it.
Yeah. So actually, that's one reason we've strategically rebanded ourselves with the Unify, Advocate, Educate, and with Unify being the first part of this, is that it's okay to have all sorts of different cyclists coming together, even though the mountain bike groups or the mountain bike associations may have different priorities, at the end of the day, their interests still overlap with the racers.
They're riding off-road, but they have to ride on the road to get to off-road sometimes.
Precisely. And so there's a lot of overlap in the interests, and LNB we're repositioning ourselves or reinvigorating ourselves towards that unified advocacy. It's okay if you ride differently. At the end of the day, we're all still riding a bicycle.
Right. And we are riding on the roads at some point or other, right?
There's also issues with land access. Here in Michigan, there's a lot of private land. There's a lot of state land that there's a lot of strict rules about how it can be used. And so, part of our work is also just working to get access to land, but then also to figure out ways to use it with sensible regulations and rules around that so that everybody can enjoy it, but we can still get cyclists on it. Because for a long time, cyclists have been pushed off the land or have been pushed off of using it because of a perception that we damage it, when in fact we don't.
Right. Well, we were having coffee and talking, and I think we could have been in any city in North America, because we're all dealing with the same thing. Highways cutting our neighborhoods in half, one-way streets speeding through our neighborhoods. What are the other issues in Lansing that are problems elsewhere?
I'd say the biggest thing is that Lansing eviscerated itself. It used to be everybody lived in the city of Lansing, and East Lansing was kind of the university enclave. Right. And now Lansing itself is kind of the underclass. Everybody that's, the middle class has moved out, and because they get subsidized for taxes, and they get the big houses with the big closets and all that kind of stuff, and nobody wants to live, everybody's got to have,
a big
elbow room and all this crap, and we don't have that inside the city by and large.
Right. And that's happened everywhere. I think you're right. Yeah. And then you're right about subsidizing those suburbs with longer streets and more pipe for sewers and all that.
Even beyond the suburbs, we're talking exurban sprawl now with 10-acre lots spreading everywhere, which has kind of created the gravel biking scene, because there's so much more traffic on paved surfaces now than ever before, and tiny little gravel roads are very pleasant to ride on.
Totally. I rode on a lot of those coming in. Yeah.
So my angle, what I'm working on these days, is the green classroom. So I'm dropping down a generation, and I'm with kids every day for 10 years now. Right. And that is something around the nation. Right. It's catching on. Yeah. It's a thing that school districts will buy into. Schools own property. They have not used their property until now. The green classroom is a thing I can pitch.
Which means teaching the class outside?
Outdoors, yes. And add to that, I have a company called Out Your Back Door, and I'm just now launching a academic division of that for schools. And I'm going to be teaching kids lifelong skills and biking this fall. Well, I'm doing a pilot program this summer, but this fall we're getting kids on bikes and on cross-country skis in the winter, and doing academic standard connection to outdoor activities. Wow. And that is the next generation. They love it. They're going to be helpers very soon.
Hopefully, yeah. When you teach a kid to ride a bike, it's
freedom machine. It's a real thing.
Freedom machine. I love that.
It's literally true. I don't just teach a skill. I teach them to be themselves, to be independent, and to be brave.
Right. Great. Well, Tim and Jeff and Rick and Andy, thanks very much.
Thank you, Taylor.
It was nice meeting you, Taylor.
Yeah. Great ride with you.
Absolutely.
Super happy to meet you, Taylor. Absolutely. Best of luck with everything back in Cali.
Trails.
One of the things that they said that really struck me is, where is the younger generation? I'm not sure. Is that Gen Z or what? But, everyone in the Lansing Bike Party that I met was a little bit older, and they had mentioned that, we are kind of missing this middle generation, that maybe they're not on bikes. We work hard with people like Jim Shanman to get young kids on bikes. And I wonder if we do have sort of a missing generation there.
It might not just be bikes. I've noticed that at No Kings protests, a lot of people are older. Like, where are the 20-year-olds? Is that just because
we're older, maybe? You think that we notice it, or things that people have time for, Because when you have young kids like you do, it is hard to get out there and do a lot of protesting or a lot of riding or those kinds of events.
There are a lot of young people in bike advocacy and who ride and all that. But I talked to Amy about this from before, Amy Verner. Baby boomers who are, what are they, in their 70s now?
Yeah, I think so.
The bike business has been built around them because it's such a bubble in the population.
And such a big bubble. Lots of things were built around the boomers.
Here's Amy.
The 10-speed bike came about because of the baby boomers, and biking got very, very large. But it was the baby boomer that was riding. And the baby boomer has kept with riding. Now they're 80 years old, in their 70s, and not as many people are riding, the baby boomers. But they affected what was happening in the bicycle industry, coming up with different types of bikes. So there was a 10-speed, and the baby boomer got a little bit older, and they introduced the hybrid, because now the baby boomer didn't want to be in the racing position down. They wanted up bars. Then also came the mountain bike. Again, baby boomers, but other generations were involved in it, but there weren't as many people. Then we saw the e-bikes. That's the baby boomer again. Well, they were getting older.
That was an invention.
No, e-bikes were already in Europe. They've been in Europe since before the Second World War. E-bikes have been around. Well, they were gasoline bikes, okay, the motors, instead of electric. But the electric did come around. But it's just interesting to see the progression of cycling in the United States and in other countries as well. And it had to do with the greater population of people. And now the population has changed. There's not, as many people in each one of those age groups. And the inventions were all baby boomers. They made women-specific bikes. Now they're going back because it's too expensive. They're not selling enough bikes to have that women-specific. Another thing about the baby boomers as they got older, their fingers weren't working right for shifting because we get arthritis in them. Imagine, Shimano comes out with electronic shifting. That just saved the day, and a lot of baby boomers went back to road bikes once that came out. These were young engineers at this point that were working for these companies. The baby boomers were using the expertise from this younger generation.
Everything you need just magically appears.
Yeah.
In your life, that's been your experience.
Yeah. Especially if you're in the bike business, it kept your bike business going to have these innovations.
What happens next?
I don't know. I'm out of the bike industry.
Something.
Take me to my grave on a four-wheeler or what? I don't know. No, I have no idea. Another generation is in charge.
What do they call this new generation?
You must know. What
Z?
right now?
Generation Z?
I don't
It's
really.
your daughter's generation.
Is it? There was an alpha, right?
But it's kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's what, yeah. I don't know that I'm a boomer, but I'm right on the cusp of a boomer. So maybe I'm going to benefit from all this bike organization catering to boomers.
You have. I mean, you have electronic shifting, which I guess you don't have.
No, I don't. And I could have used it because I was having trouble with my shifter on my trip.
Yeah, you got to pay attention. Maybe the bike industry will stop coming up with new things for boomers because they're about that age. Although these 80-year-olds, Robin and Amy, were just dropping me every time we started up on the ride. And they're riding 50 miles, right. and still at the end of it, they're dropping me. I caught up to them a little bit on hills at some points, but...
Were they on e-bikes or on acoustic bikes?
No, acoustic.
Good for them.
Good show.
We want to thank Peter Norton, of course, and Rob and Amy and Claire Vlech and all the guys from the Lansing Bike Party. Again, I'm going to say I love that name as an organization.
Dan McGuinness and Dan Bolognani and Tom O'Brien from the Western New England Greenway.
And of course, we always want to thank our regulars, Julie Richard, Amy Ziering, Lindsay Sturman, Stacy Randecker, Josh Hagland, and Kevin Burton.
Yes. Do you have a bike quote?
That sounded like a real question. Yes, I do. Well, okay, maybe it's not a quote, but it's a thought. And it's going back to what we've been talking about while I was on my ride. There is no cheating in biking because all biking is cheating because it is such an easy way to get around.
It's the most efficient form of transportation in the universe.
That's right.
That's scientific. That's a fact.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Taylor.
Ride safe.
This episode of Bike Talk is sponsored by the law offices of Pocras and De Los Reyes, with offices in Los Angeles and Bakersfield and serving all of Southern California.
Bike Talk is a project of CRSP and the Los Angeles Eco-Village Institute. And that was Bike Talk. If you have a story, a tip, or a topic, head over to biketalk.org and send us a message. Talk again next week.
Push on a pedal, get your heart started. Push on a pedal, push it down and up again. Push on a pedal, get your heart started. Push on a pedal, push it down and up again. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, push your feet on the pedals, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedals, and ride it all around, ride it all around. I won't go stinking up the air, leave behind the daily grind. Let your mind unwind, live its life, pretend to life, better get yourself a bike. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedal, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedals, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Oh, get that car out of my way. I wanna ride my bike today. Keep me fit, get me there. I won't go stinking up the air, leave behind the daily grind. Let your mind unwind, live its life, pretend to life. Better get yourself a bike. Got yourself a bike. Oh, 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 got yourself a bike.